please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody. So the biggest name and best player certainly left in the free agent market in the NHL right now is Mike Hoffman. And today I'm going to talk about 5 teams that I think could really be in on Hoffman and trying to bring him into their lineup for various different reasons this coming season. Now before we begin, I just ask that you please hit that subscribe button if you are new. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't yet. Both of those things really help out a lot and are much appreciated. But Mike Hoffman, still available, certainly the best player. He had 29 goals last season. He's without a doubt a top 6 goal scorer and will make pretty much any team he goes to significantly better. I'm a little surprised that he's still on the market this deep into the offseason, but on the other hand, I'm not, because pretty much everyone else is signed. And, he has the ability to kind of just wait, let things play out, and see what fits best for him before the start of next season and where he wants to go. So these are certainly not the only 5 teams that I think will be in on him. I think there's a lot of teams that are interested, but I think these 5 stand out because they have, they're probably going to have the cap space to do it. They have the need for a goal scorer like him in the lineup, and the fit just seems to make sense. So let's get into it here, starting with the first team that I want to talk about, and definitely a team that I think would make a ton of sense for him to go to, and that is the Columbus Blue Jackets. Especially now with Gus Nyquist being out for significant time, because of injury. Nyquist is going to miss 5 to 6 months. That's going to be a good portion of next season. And Columbus is a team that struggles to score anyway. Like they're an offensively challenged team to begin with. Oliver Bjorkstrand and Zach Werenski were their only players on that team to reach 20 goals last season. And Zach Werenski is a defenseman. Bjorkstrand was the only forward to score 20 goals last year. And, they're starved for a goal-scoring winger like that. And they lost one of their goal-scoring wingers in Gus Nyquist and for most of next year. And that is going to be a big loss for them. And that means that they are in desperate need of adding a scoring winger at this point if they're going to have enough offense to compete in that very tough Metro Division next year. And I think Hoffman makes all the sense in the world for the Blue Jackets. They have more than enough cap space to do it. They've got $9.2 million in cap space right now, and that's not counting Nyquist, who's going to be on LTIR, and that's not taking out Brandon Dubinsky, who's going to be on LTIR, who opens up between the two of them over $10 million in cap space. Columbus is loaded with cap space right now. Absolutely loaded with cap space. That's not even a thought for them. They could easily sign Hoffman, and it makes all the sense in the world for the Blue Jackets from a hockey standpoint. They desperately need more offense. He's a scoring winger capable of scoring 30 goals in a season. And, they don't have that kind of scoring in their lineup right now. Cam Atkinson had an injury-riddled season last year, only had 12 goals. Bjorkstrand had injury issues. He had 21. He led the team in goals last year. But really, they don't have that other scoring winger. I mean, the rest of their goals came from Werenski, or a lot of their goals came from Werenski, who's a defenseman, and then Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's a center. They don't have another winger. Cam Atkinson was the second highest scoring winger that's going to be in the lineup to start next season with 12 goals. So Hoffman makes all the sense in the world for Columbus. Number 2, another team I certainly think that he would fit well in that lineup for and would really help the offense is the Nashville Predators. Nashville's another team like Columbus that struggled offensively last year. Again, they only had one 20-goal scorer in their lineup last season in Nashville, and it was Philip Forsberg with 21 goals. That was it. No one else reached 20 goals in that lineup, and they need more scoring around those guys down the middle, Ryan Johansson and Matt Duchene. They have a 1-2 punch down the middle of very skilled centers, but they don't have wingers that put up big numbers playing with those centers other than Forsberg. And even Forsberg had a really down year last year. He needs some help in the goal scoring department. And Mike Hoffman is definitely a better goal scorer than someone like a Victor Arvidsson or Kalle Järnkrok, who are playing roles that are probably too big for what they should be in a playoff team's lineup. So, Nashville didn't have a great year last year. Goaltending was a big issue, but also the lack of offense was an issue for the Predators. And if they could bring in a guy like Mike Hoffman who could come in and score 25 to 30 goals, I think that would be a huge boost for this team, particularly since they lost their second leading goal scorer in Craig Smith from last year, who's now signed with the Boston Bruins. And they also lost Nick Bonino, who also had 18 goals last year. They traded him to the Minnesota Wild. So they don't have their tied for second leading goal scorers from last year. And that really leaves Philip Forsberg all alone in the goal scoring department. Hoffman would make a ton of sense for them. The third team I want to talk about would be the team that Mike Hoffman has been playing for the past couple of years, the Florida Panthers. Why can't Hoffman just stay in Florida? And I still think that that's an option on the table. Florida does have plenty of cap space, $8.3 million in cap space. That's more than enough to re-sign Hoffman. And Hoffman was their leading goal scorer last year. Why wouldn't you want to bring back your leading goal scorer? They already lost Evgeny Dadonov, who was their second leading goal scorer with 25 goals last season. He's gone on to sign with the Ottawa Senators. So if you're the Panthers, why not bring back Hoffman and his 29 goals last year and hope he can score 30 this coming season? Or, assuming 82 games, but, on pace for 30 goals. And bring back your leading goal scorer. Again, salary cap isn't an issue. I think the Panthers are still a team that are trying to make the playoffs and want to be a playoff team. When you're in a division with teams like Tampa Bay and Boston and Toronto and Montreal's getting better, they've got a lot of competition in that Atlantic division for a playoff position, especially since I think there's a good chance that only 3 teams from that Atlantic make it and 5 from the Metro make it. So, if you're Florida and you're trying to get into that top 3 of that division, which is going to be very difficult to do, you want a guy like Hoffman who can bring goal scoring to your lineup. And he was their leading scorer last year. Like I said, I just think it makes a lot of sense for them to bring him back. And I don't think that that's necessarily off the table yet. Next team I want to talk about, and this is an interesting one that may not seem to make sense, especially money-wise at first, but let me explain. That is the St. Louis Blues. So if you go to Cap Friendly right now, the St. Louis Blues are over the salary cap by over $1 million. They don't have cap space. Hold on. Yes, they actually do. Because Vladimir Tarasenko and Alex Steen are going to start next season on LTIR. And that means that their cap hits will not count against the salary cap as long as they are on LTIR. That's over $13 million in cap space for the start of next year for the St. Louis Blues. And I've heard that there's a chance that Alex Steen does not play at all next season, that he could be out for the entire year with his injury, which would mean that his $5.75 million AAV on his contract would not count against the Blues salary cap all season long, which means they would have $5.75 million to sign Mike Hoffman. Hoffman's not going to cost that much. He's probably going to be under $5 million in whatever he gets for his contract for next year. As long as it's a short-term deal, it's probably going to be under $5 million. And they have enough money with Steen on LTIR and certainly with Tarasenko on LTIR, although he should be coming back at some point during the season. They will have enough cap space and money to sign a guy like Mike Hoffman. And from a hockey standpoint, with Steen and Tarasenko, particularly Tarasenko, who's a big goal scorer for them, out for significant time, it would make a lot of sense for them to want a guy like Mike Hoffman. Now, obviously, they still have Jaden Schwartz to play the wing. They still have David Perron. They still have younger guys like Sanford and Blais, but bring in a veteran guy who is going to give you 25 or so, at least 25 or so goals, if not more than that, in Mike Hoffman with a guy like Tarasenko missing significant time would make a lot of sense for the St. Louis Blues from a hockey standpoint. He could come in and play in their top 6. and really provide some good goal scoring there. And from a money standpoint, as long as you have those guys on LTIR, the cap is not an issue. And Steen might be there all year, so the money might not end up being as big of an issue as it would seem right now. And that brings me to my fifth and final team. And another one where the cap situation here would certainly be a heck of a lot tighter than some of these other teams that I have been talking about, but that is the Boston Bruins. There's been a lot of talk, particularly in the local media around the Boston area where I am, about the Bruins being in on Mike Hoffman. And I certainly think that he would definitely be an upgrade for the Bruins offensively and would be a nice addition to the team for sure. And a team that had secondary scoring issues, particularly in the playoffs last year, but really have always had secondary scoring issues. They rely so much on that top line. Well, that's a problem for the Boston Bruins for a couple of different reasons. The biggest being both Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak are going to miss significant time, at least probably the first month or two of next season because of injuries, which means that they're going to be on LTIR, at least to start the year. That is very, very important because that would easily open up enough cap space for the Bruins to sign Mike Hoffman, at least for right now. The issue is they still have to re-sign Jake DeBrusk, and then what would happen when eventually Pastrnak and Marchand are ready to come back? Then you put yourself kind of in a cap crunch unless somebody else is injured by that point and on LTIR, and then it's not an issue anymore. But at least to start the season, money-wise, it would be possible because of Pastrnak and Marchand being injured. It would be possible cap-wise, at least at the beginning of the year. And from a hockey standpoint, this is a team that has struggled with secondary scoring, that needs to add more goals to the lineup. They went out and they got Craig Smith. They brought him in at $3.1 million. I really liked that move for the Bruins. How about you go out and get Hoffman as well? That would really solidify your depth scoring because it would drop Jake DeBrusk down to a third line role, and then either Smith could play the second line right wing or Kasha could play the second line right wing, whoever you want, and then the other one would play on the third line, and then you would have a scoring third line in Boston, which is something that they have not at all had, really, outside of obviously Charlie Coyle down the middle, but he hasn't had great scoring wingers. If you could have Bergeron your top line center, Krejci your second line center, and Coyle your third line center, and have two scoring wingers, or at least wingers able to put the puck in the net, in Jake DeBrusk and either Craig Smith or Andre Kasha, whoever doesn't play second line on the right side, and then have Hoffman on the left side of your second line with Krejci, that would be a loaded lineup when everyone is healthy for the Boston Bruins. Again, that's assuming that you would have Marchand and Pastrnak on the wings on your first line. They're not going to have that to start the season, at least. And then when Marchand is not there as your left winger on that first line, Hoffman can go up and play with Bergeron on the first line. That would make a ton of sense. So from a hockey standpoint, I think Hoffman would fit in very, very well for Boston and make them a significantly better team. That one's just going to be tougher from a cap standpoint when you look at money, and particularly when the Marchand and Pastrnak come back. That would be a lot tighter salary cap-wise, so we don't know if that's fully possible. But certainly to start the season with those two on LTIR, it would be. But those are 5 teams that I think it really would make a lot of sense for them to go after a guy like Mike Hoffman and bring him into their lineup for various different reasons. And particularly just the added goal scoring would be huge for a lot of these teams. Some of them it's because of injuries like St. Louis and Boston, who are going to be missing important offensive pieces to start the year. And then, for a team like the Predators or the Blue Jackets, they just need more offense in general. They are an offensively challenged team that would greatly benefit from adding in a goal scorer like Mike Hoffman. And then there's always the chance he just stays in Florida, where he was their leading goal scorer last year. And obviously they certainly, I don't think, would be against bringing him back and keeping him. So that pretty much does it for this one. Those are my 5 teams that I think it would make a ton of sense for Mike Hoffman to go to. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon merchandise store and donation link are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.